And hey there, hi there, ho there, and a gracious good Saturday morning to you. Welcome back for another exciting edition of the Cardinal Couple Radio Hour podcast, where we discuss the joy and excitement of UofL women's sports and certainly some very exciting things went down the road this week. We'll get into all those for sure. It's basketball time in the Commonwealth of Kentucky with a bunch of changes going on, so we'll kind of go through all those. We got to see the team in the virtual luncheon, and I have to admit the food that I had at home was better than I probably would have had at the golf house, but that's just how the virtual luncheon works. I didn't get any free prizes, and I was a little upset about that. Other than that, there's a lot of fun going on. We're certainly going to cover all that and more, and as we normally like to do, we'll kind of bring the guys in a little bit. Case has been telling us about mic problems. Let us know who this Mike is, Case, and we'll take care of him for you. Okay?
Well, Mike's doing a great job. No issues with Mike here. It's his good buddy headphones and connecting cables that are causing most of the issues. But going good so far. Working at the moment. We'll see if I have to make a random change a little bit later where I'll mute Skype so that the mic bustling doesn't make any issues and then edit it out of the podcast on my own.
Sounds awfully complicated, but if anybody can handle it, I know you can.
Among the simplest things that can be done for editing is just silence that part.
Yeah.
Jared Anderson with us yet another Saturday. He's been going through grievance stuff. He's been going through COVID issues at the bank. All kinds of stuff happening in your world, Jared. But you did get to see some good football last night, and hopefully Katie's okay this morning.
Yeah, lucked out, and a co-worker was not able to go, so snagged some last-minute tickets. Got to see a win. Sometimes, especially with the season for football, it's often surprising. So we were glad to be out there. She's a little disappointed in Florida State's not playing today with their situation, but we were both thankful. She wasn't feeling well last week. We both got tested negative. So definitely grateful and thankful for that part.
So I'm glad as well, because right now there is a spike, of course, in cases being reported, as we seem to be setting new highs every day here in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Also got Jeff McAdams in here with us. Jeff and I were talking a little bit earlier about the Rowdy Boys I ran into at football last night. Jeff, what's been going on with your week?
Same old. Surviving day to day, doing stuff, living my life pretty quietly, trying to stay socially isolated, all that, work from home. So that's no big deal, but yeah, same sort of stuff. Playing around with writing a little bit of super simple software because I'm not a very good software engineer, but kind of playing around with some stuff there, having some fun. So that's me.
It's kind of what's for dinner these days, huh?
Yep.
As for me, been tracking a lot of things. There's been a lot of basketball news. I've been following some of that. Met the Rowdy Boys last night at football. We attended our final game in our football package and saw about 5 or 6 young men escorted out by the LPD in the third quarter because of their failure to adhere to basic and simple rules that they have installed in Cardinal Stadium. So they were walked out. It was almost as exciting as the game, So that was going on in my life. This is the time of the show where we get into our scheduling and Twitter information. I almost didn't say scheduling, Case, because we don't really know for sure what's going to happen. But Case Hoskins, he's going rogue. He's going dark. Everybody get ready. We may need to switch frequencies. Go ahead, buddy.
Well, it's funny. I was just on Twitter looking at people talking about Louisville football's schedule change, and how we were originally scheduled to go to Boston College this upcoming weekend. We were going to play on Friday night. We being Louisville football. That's now going to be on Saturday, time and TV to be determined. The Louisville calendar hasn't even figured that out yet. It still says football versus Wake time to be announced, because they hadn't even completely sorted out the upcoming schedule before it got changed again. But before Saturday, it's time. It's winter sports season. Basketball getting ready to tip off about half a month later than normal. They'll get underway on the quasi-holiday of the day before Thanksgiving. Men's basketball hosting Evansville, who replaced Southern Illinois, I believe, in the Wade Houston Tip-Off Classic, in that bubbled event.
Correct.
That's at 4 p.m. on the ACC network. And then women's basketball starts their season the same day. They'll head down probably Monday or Tuesday to Murfreesboro to get ready for their matchup against Middle Tennessee. That one's scheduled for 7:30. No TV listed. Probably some Middle Tennessee streaming site option. Paul, you going to make it? Are they allowing you to go down there as press?
I did not put in my credentials for it. I'm kind of in Jeff McAdams mode as well, where I really don't want to go out and do a whole lot. I mean, I was actually nervous going into football last night in what is socially spaced and kind of,
open area and all
where
that.
people have to, I've made trips like that before, Tennessee Martin and the like, Nashville, Tennessee for Vanderbilt and things, but don't think I'm going to make the trip down to Murfreesboro, because anytime you go to Murfreesboro, you can spend a month there in 3 days. So that's kind of the way that city goes.
So we'll all be keeping an eye on potential streaming options. I have to think that with the reduced capacities across the nation in sporting events, that most schools are trying to find some sort of streaming option if they didn't already have one. So keep an eye out on the site for whatever UofL and Middle Tennessee have for us on Wednesday. Next Friday, Louisville men continue their Wade Houston Tip-Off Classic. Their second game in that event is against Seton Hall. That one's at 4 p.m. on ESPN2. And then we'll have another show by then where we can review and preview women's basketball games. But women's basketball will take on Cincinnati at 2 in Cincinnati on Saturday. And then there's a holiday in the middle there on Thanksgiving, I guess, on the 26th. But stay home. Have your own Thanksgiving dinner by yourself. Just immediate family only.
It's going to be interesting, yeah, because I know traditionally you like to go to your parents, and Jeff, you do the same, and of course, Jared, you're with your family. Just got to wonder how that's going to change for you guys this year. I usually go to my sisters, and we're having second thoughts about that. So I don't know, guys.
Yeah, from that
we've already changed ours.
Yeah. Ours has changed a little bit just because of other things that have happened, but I live alone. I don't have a partner. I don't have kids, so I have throughout all of this really kind of considered my household an extension of my parents. So I have interacted with them fairly regularly on that respect, but otherwise have been very, very socially isolated. So we'll still do that, but it'll be smaller than normal.
Yeah, we let we're actually in a really interesting position. Told my family that we're probably most comfortable doing something digital, but that's primarily because we're expecting a niece on my wife's side, like any day.
Nice.
And so we're my wife is the second to be in the hospital. We're supposed to be watching our nephew and the dog when it happens. So we're in a really kind of a pickle where we need to kind of keep ourselves in the safe zone more than normal. So it's going to be an interesting holiday season, just like it is for everybody, but for us in particular, for a number of reasons. It would be interesting even without a pandemic at this point.
And it's crazy, Jared. I'll let you get back to it in just a second. I was watching one of the news channels last night after I got in from football, and they were showing one of our major metropolitan airports in this nation, and it was wall-to-wall people in a time where they're saying don't go anywhere. It was nuts, Jared.
Yeah, it's a little tough because I'm kind of in a similar boat as some of those people. I haven't met a good portion of Katie's family quite yet. That's gonna change this year. I'm actually gonna head down to South Carolina to go meet some of them the week after Christmas, and obviously some current concerns there. But being a little bit over an 8-hour drive, I am flying, but some of the regulations, it looks like they're limiting how many people are going to be on the planes, and then the constant mask requirements. And I plan to get tested before I go down, and I plan to get tested when I get back, just to kind of as some precautions. But there's quite a few members of her family I still haven't gotten to meet, and they had asked me quite some time ago to come down around Christmas time to get to see the rest of them. And I haven't seen her parents in over, other than those couple days she moved up here, it's kind of really been over a year since I've gotten to spend quality time with her parents either.
So basically, you could send a surrogate down there, because so many of them don't know you. You could just pick somebody out of the crowd and go, "Hi, I'm Jared. How are you?"
If Facebook and other social media is not a thing, then that would certainly be a
Katie would probably know, maybe. Katie might know.
She wouldn't be too thrilled.
Well, they can always stay in touch with you and the rest of us on Twitter, can't they, Case?
That's true. And the Seahawks played a primetime game, which meant I got to watch it on TV and I got to tweet about it. I tweeted as at best case scenario.
That was a heck of a game, too. Yeah.
It was. I tweeted at the end of it that it was kind of fascinating. I was getting to go to bed at a reasonable time. It's still 11:30, but much more reasonable than most of the Seahawks primetime games have been recently.
That's what you get for following a West Coast team, man.
Look, Jeff, it wouldn't matter. The primetime games are at 8 p.m. no matter which team.
But that's true. That's a fair point.
But in addition to getting to go to bed at a reasonable time, my heart rate never really peaked out like it usually does in the both Seahawks games. As weird as it was, and as kind of nervy as it got at times, it was pretty relaxed as far as some football games go.
You in the back of your mind, though, you're thinking, is there a Phoenix miracle going to happen here at the end of this one, right?
I was just like, they're going to...
An Arizona bomb.
Well, I was like, Arizona's going to go down and score a touchdown, and then I just hope that they go for 2, so then we can either win or lose, and I don't have to deal with overtime in an Arizona game on a Thursday night again. I've had way too much of that in my life the last few years. Anyway.
All right. Twitter is that.
Yeah. Jeff tweets us at Jeff McAdams and at Card Couple Radio, which with basketball season coming, should come back to life a little bit here. Paulie tweets us at Cardinal Couple. Same thing with now that we've got another sport on the docket. Start to see some more tweets coming out from him. And Jared tweets us at Mr. Anderson Jared, who, when he's not tweeting about sports photos, is tweeting about other photos, and the Colts often. So
yes.
That's it. That's the Twitter accounts there.
There it is, simple and quick for you. You can also make sure and check with us. This week we will be doing a Thanksgiving article, something that we haven't done in past years. And Jared, if you're not available to do it, I'll do it, because we've got a basketball game Wednesday night that we need to kind of get out there and put out there. Traditionally on the major holidays, we don't run an article, a Cardinal Couple, but I think this year we will on Thursday, just to recap what happened against Middle Tennessee. Now, of course, if that gets canceled for some reason, then we won't do an article on Thanksgiving Day, but that's just the way that works. Mm-hmm. Basketball in itself is going to be kind of our prime focus and talking point today. There's a little other news we'll get into, but the Cardinals, we now know that we've got a bunch of players that are getting ACC and national player awards. We're fairly certain, even though we had one derivation from the schedule, who the first 5 opponents are going to be. And we had a virtual luncheon. There was just a bunch of stuff going on this week, Jared.
Yeah, definitely busy. When you're looking for basketballs, they're starting to gear up for a hopeful season, and they're still figuring out how they're going to do everything. With it being indoors, it's a little bit tougher since the air doesn't circulate as well. You want to make sure that everybody's going to be safe, so it's kind of a day by day what they're doing, and you can just trust the process and hope that they're going to find the solution that's going to be the most efficient and safest for everybody around. But it looks like we are going to have a basketball season, so that's promising. I know everybody's been eager to get back to watching some basketball, especially here at Cardinal Couple, our highlight sport. Looks like it's going to be a great team. a couple concerns here and there, maybe about like the post players and a lot of the new faces, how quickly they're actually going to mesh on the court. But overall, being a top 5 team preseason and another high recruiting class, plenty of talent, I think we're all just eager and excited, ready for the season to start.
I think there is a lot of excitement in the Cardinal fan base for sure. Now, they had the seat selection process over Thursday and Friday for Cardinal women's basketball fans. And I don't have season tickets because I usually get a media seat, so I didn't participate in it. But Jeff, you have held season tickets for quite a long time, but you did not participate in it. So kind of go into that with us.
Yeah, I did get the message inviting me to do the seat selection on Thursday. I spoke with my family, the various folks that typically go. We decided that we would skip this year. A little bit disappointed, obviously, in that decision because we love going. It's a lot of fun, but none of us were really too terribly comfortable with participating in that environment right now. So we'll skip this year. We'll be back next year and back in our normal seats probably, and we'll see how it goes. Just it was a tough call, but a quick conference among folks, and we said, let's skip it this year. We'll be cheering. We may gather individually or as small groups, like I said, with my parents. May go over to their place and watch some games with them from there, online or on TV.
It's certainly an option that a lot of us will be taking this year, for sure. They have notified or let Jared know that they would like for him to be a pool photographer, but as far as other media notifications, as it being me or anybody else, they haven't come out with anything official that I've seen yet. So we don't know basically what's going to happen. And then Jared was bringing up a fun point earlier. He won't be actually sitting where he normally sits on the floor case to take his pictures. He doesn't know where they're going to have him take photos from. So it's 2020. This is just weird.
Yeah, this is something we've seen, especially early on when I guess baseball and basketball were a couple of the first sports to get back underway. Baseball in particular, you saw all kinds of new shots that you wouldn't have usually seen from games because photographers weren't allowed in their normal spaces and the stands were empty. So there were some really cool shots that came out from the MLB season that would not have ever been able to have been taken from different areas of the ballparks. I think you're going to see some similar stuff in some of these really nice college basketball arenas that we have, some classic arenas that are going to get different fields of view, different angles. And Jared, you can probably talk about whether you're excited about this or a little bit nervous for all the different things that can come from the opportunities here.
Yeah, so what I've done in the past is I had explored some different angles and spots already. I would go over there in the stairwell there by the lower level, what are the Evan Williams bar and all of those, Jack Daniels bars. You get a good almost like rim eye level shot, so you can get some cool stuff, especially in the post or going up for some layups. I've done some stuff up towards the top where they keep the TV cameras just to see those angles. The further you get away, it's a little bit darker when you're getting the shots. You can definitely get some cool angles. I still prefer being right there on the floor. You get a lot more of the intensity, the players right there on top of you for the some of the photos. Not really sure where they're going to put us this year. If they move us further back but keep us in the end zones, I think the primary concern that myself and other photographers will be looking at is how much that the goalposts will be blocking the court for us, because they only block a small percentage of the court where we sit right now, but if they push us further back, it just obstructs our field of view more. So that's something that they still got to figure out, and I've heard they're still looking at different possibilities. One of the final options that they've looked at is making the court almost like an ice hockey rink where they have that plexiglass surrounding it to help kind of keep the players away from everybody else in the arena. So that adds another issue in itself, seeing that taking pictures through glass is not fun or easy especially when you may have smears or scratches on the glass. You get glares from the different lights. So from a photography aspect point of view, or even the videographers, that would not be best. But if we're talking about player safety and health concerns, then if that's what they do, I will support that decision.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they do go the plexiglass idea on this, and they may try to get some ideas from what they see down at MTSU on Wednesday also, to see what they're doing with it as well. Certainly, and also pay very close attention to what the men do on the Wednesday night. I think if they would set it up for the men, they would set it up the same way for the women and the KFC Summer. That just kind of seems to make sense to me. But certainly interesting times ahead here, as we're going to see how MTSU handles it on the 25th. As crazy as they are in Murfreesboro, they may just decide that everybody can wear a mask and sit right down on courtside. I certainly hope that isn't the case. But we did get kind of a preview of the team and what's going on with the squad on Thursday, when women's basketball had their virtual tip-off luncheon. It was a well-run show. I think it ran about 40 minutes. Notables for me that were not present there: Sean Moth was no longer the MC. He's doing primarily just baseball now for the University of Louisville. But Nick Curran stepped in, did a very, very good job as your kind of, I guess, MC of the event. Did a nice intro. After he did his intro, a couple of clips, and then Vince Tyree came in and made some general statements about the program and about the team and stuff. Pretty much, Vince makes a statement every year at the luncheon. And this was kind of in line with what he did. And then we got into the player introductions. Players were introduced, and they were all asked what their favorite basketball moments were. Here's something I found interesting, and we can take this on the board. They did individual breakout interviews with 5 different players that Nick Curran conducted. He did one with Haley Van Lith. He did with Casa. He did one with Elizabeth Balagoon. He did one with Dana, of course, and one with Kiana Smith. Is that a kind of a subliminal message to us, guys, that might be the starting lineup we're looking at here? I don't know. Let's kind of bat that around a little bit.
I think it's very possible. That's we were talking a little bit before. That would not be a terrible starting lineup. Maybe a bit short, missing some height in there, but I think that could be very close to what the starting lineup could be, if it isn't exactly.
Jared, the one thing that Jeff pointed out, there is no height really in that lineup.
Yeah, you can run a smaller lineup for the most part, and you'll wear down teams, but at the same time, in a little bit slower paced game, if you're not forcing a lot of turnovers, they're going to dominate you in the paint. And it's just because of the height differential. It's not that their post players may be that great as much as if they're carrying a 6-inch height over the rest of the floor, then they're just going to be able to get up to the basket a little bit easier. I wouldn't mind seeing it at points here and there, especially if you're trying to wear down an opponent there in the second half for a couple minutes here or there, but I don't think you can run almost a 5-guard lineup for a full game. I don't think it would be that effective.
I can see the pluses and the minuses on a case, and if I was going to make any change on it, I'd probably bring Casa in off the bench and maybe insert either Olivia Cochran or Liz Dixon in there in place of her to start out with. But Jeff Walls has got so many options. Holy cow.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking when you were rattling off that name. If there had been a big listed, then yeah, sure, I could say that's probably the starting lineup. Louisville could play an all-guard lineup or all-small lineup. And I know that in basketball, often when people play 4 guards, they call one person who's the same size as all the other guards a forward instead, just for the fun of it. But Louisville could go small ball for the majority of the season, but I think they're going to need to be really adaptive and versatile with their lineups. I don't think that even if they make small ball the the standard for the season, they're going to have to be able to play a more traditional lineup, only because small ball can work really well, even against teams that are playing a traditional lineup, because of the speed and the shooting that you can get out of it. Potentially, their bigs can't defend as well. If you've got enough speed, you can prevent the ball from getting inside to the bigs. But there are some teams, and the first one that came to mind was NC State, that have a player like Alyssa Cunane, who you can't play small ball against that team, or they're just going to feast on the inside. So like I said, I think Louisville's going to have to be versatile. We could, like you said, see all kinds of options, and I think it'll be really exciting. Louisville has a very good roster, and I think that it could lead to glory in what is a pretty open women's basketball season.
I think you're right there. Jeff, we also found out earlier this week that in the USA Today coaches poll, which is different from the AP poll, the Cards were ranked 5th in the AP poll earlier that came out early this week. They were 4th. The poll comes out from US Today. They're 5th, and North Carolina State is 6th, which was kind of an up for them. It's interesting how these polls go out. I found out some more about this USA Today coaches poll. It's one coach from each one of the 32 Division I programs that participate in the NCAA conference-wise. For example, the conference representative from the ACC was somebody who we like a lot, Katie Meyer, down in Miami. Mm-hmm. But each conference just had one coach. I think it's a unique and interesting way to do it, and I never knew it went into that kind of depth and detail where they have each one of the 32 conferences with one representative.
Yeah, I have mixed opinions on that. Obviously some of these conferences don't put a lot of emphasis on basketball, or even sports in general. Some of the mid-majors and lower ones where, sports is not as big of a deal for them, where when they get an equal voice and things. I don't want to, gotta sound snobby in this, and that's the last thing I want to do here. But realistically, when a lot of your really high-end basketball minds are probably going to be more prevalent in the larger conferences, more prestigious conferences in this. So
the power conferences.
Yeah. And I don't want to restrict it to just the Power Five, for example, because there's obviously more than that. But yeah, it's interesting. I wonder if we get a little bit of a skewed result because of that. Probably not much. You still have a pretty good selection of people there involved, and a lot of great minds in the game still. But yeah, it's. I wonder how that influences the results you get.
Yeah, and it could certainly do that as well. There seems to be no doubt on either poll's mind, though, who the number one team in the nation preseason is to be. And everybody kind of came out and said in unison, South Carolina.
Yeah.
Don Staley down or something, Katie can kind of throw in your face there, Jared. Well, my state's got number one and yours doesn't, yada, yada, yada.
I don't know. I don't see FSU listed, so.
Yeah. Well, I think she kind of likes what they do down there, too.
Yeah,
That's her home team. Her home state. Mm-hmm. Stanford.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Jared. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say, yeah, she still pulls for the Gamecocks a little bit.
Yeah.
When it comes down to women's sports, unfortunately, South Carolina is one of those states that's a little bit behind on the spectrum in terms of the respect that those types of programs get. Although South Carolina is just a powerhouse in terms of women's basketball over the last few years, and that state doesn't give them the recognition they deserve. So kind of a little sad that they're number one and most of that state does not know or care.
Out of the total of 32 first place votes, they've received 31 of them. So a clear choice among the coaches. Stanford getting second place, Connecticut third, Baylor barely edging us out for fourth, and then of course we were fifth. NC State behind us in sixth, and then the other top 10 consist of Mississippi State, Arizona, and UCLA rounding it out at number 10. there. So the top 10 in that league has, the ACC had 4 schools total in the top 25. Syracuse, I think, was underranked at 21st. I think Q has got a huge program up this year. And then Notre Dame came in at 23rd after that dismal season last year. Apparently, they're thinking that they have been reborn with a new coach. They came in 23rd in the top 25. Jeff, that one baffles me. How can you put Notre Dame that high?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess you look at what sort of the players are coming in and doing, and what the new coach is doing. Obviously, McGraw retired, so it's. I guess you have to just kind of predict what they're going to do. Obviously, it's going to be a big question mark. Anytime you have change of coaching, change of a situation, particularly after you've had a really terrible season like that. There's a whole lot of question marks there. You just try to predict. Preseason rankings are you take it with, you have the saying, take it with a grain of salt, and take a whole salt lick with this one because, you just don't know where they're gonna be, how they're gonna do.
Should be an interesting conference. Case I'm looking at some schools that didn't get a lot of mention, but schools that did quite well against us last year have had some players leave. But Florida State, I didn't see them anywhere in the top 25.
Receiving
they certainly
votes.
Gave us. Oh, they were in the receiving votes category.
Yep.
Along with Middle Tennessee receiving votes, who were starting out against. Miami did not make it in the top 25. They traditionally had a good program down there. There's been a lot of conversation about North Carolina this year and the job that Courtney Banghart's doing there, but I didn't see them in the top 25 either. Is the ACC being a little underplayed here, sir? I mean, your thoughts on that?
Well, I think you kind of have to look at, you have to look at everybody. The ACC is great in women's college basketball. They're great in men's college basketball. It's a very basketball-heavy conference, right? So if you look at it, though, go through it real quickly. You got Louisville, NC State, if I don't miss any, Syracuse, Notre Dame. So, right, just 4 in the top 25.
Right. Just 4.
Florida State received 23 votes out of 32. North Carolina received 11. Middle Tennessee, like you mentioned, received 7. So
Virginia Tech had 6. Yeah.
Did you? Just skipped straight over that one.
Yep.
in between Rutgers and Tennessee.
Yeah.
2 pretty decent women's college basketball programs in their own right that are on hard times recently. But is the ACC being undervalued? I don't know. Do we overvalue the ACC sometimes? Probably. The SEC is overvalued in football all the time, and when they're not in the conversation, people think that they're undervalued. So it's the same kind of situation. We'll just have to see. And unfortunately, with the strangeness of this college basketball season, you're really going to have to wait until tournament time to see how over or undervalued any particular conference is. You could have a really strong ACC that cannibalizes itself and doesn't look like anybody's very good. And then come tournament time, if they get 5 or 6 teams in, just roundhouse the tournament. Alternatively, you could get 5 or 6 teams in, and then everybody lose in the first or second weekend. So there's really no way to know without all these big non-conference matchups that we usually see.
Right.
How good any team or conference is going to be. I think we just look at Louisville and say, yeah, they're really good. They lost some production, but they've got a lot still. And people will probably try to compare other ACC teams to Louisville, but you're kind of a way off from that.
Yeah.
Jeff Wallace was asked the question, guys, and I'll let you make guesses on this, on who he thought our toughest opponent would be this year. What do you think Jeff came up with as an answer?
Oh, goodness. So we're not playing UConn. We're not playing...
I was going to say, are we still playing UConn?
Yeah, I don't think we are, yeah. We're not playing Kentucky.
It was still on the schedule.
Yeah. Oh, we are playing UConn. Anyway. Yeah, it's still listed there. Okay. I don't know. I'm just looking through the schedule here trying to figure out.
Case, what do you got?
It's either going to be UConn or NC State, I think.
Jared?
See, I'm looking at the road games to see who we've got. I kind of want to say maybe at Florida State or at Syracuse, one of those two.
I should clarify. I think those are the hardest games on Louisville's schedule. I don't know necessarily that those are either
Right,
of the ones that Jeff Walls would have said.
I agree with Case about UConn, but that seems a little too obvious. So I'm gonna go with one of those road games where Syracuse has always been a tough team to play, and Florida State's always been a tough team to play. I think it's one of those two.
Jeff Walls, when asked who the toughest opponent will be this year for the Cardinals, answered COVID.
Okay, well.
Yeah, that's fair.
So
I didn't fully understand the parameters of my guessing option. I thought we meant teams we were going to play on the court.
I didn't bring that up. I just said the toughest opponent this year. I think he could be right as COVID. I don't think they have a strong point guard, but they definitely are a deep bench. COVID is, yes. And it is a concern. We've already seen schedule changes before anything is even tipped off yet. Western Kentucky's had some schedule scrambling. Eastern Kentucky's had to do the same. Bellarmine women's basketball has postponed everything up to December 29th because of concerns on campus about COVID.
Their men's basketball team is currently under the NCAA required 14-day quarantine.
Yeah. So it's we talk about the anticipation on the season and the things that we hope to see, but once again, as Wall said, our biggest foe right now is COVID and how it's going to happen.
That's one of the major differences between college basketball and college football is that the NCAA doesn't have a whole lot of say. Well, they say they don't have a lot of say over college football. It's very conference heavy. They don't administer the championship. They just benefit from it because they benefit from everything without taking any real responsibilities. But the NCAA tournament is kind of their big deal, and they're taking this a lot more seriously in that they really feel like they need to take a lot of extra precautions to get the season to happen. Like in football, you've seen Ole Miss is going to play, either Ole Miss or Mississippi State, I don't recall. They're going to play today without 53 scholarship players because it's automatically canceled if you don't have 53 scholarship players unless you opt back in. And they're opting back in so that they can be completely punished. I mean, you guys could just choose to not play, but they're not doing that. But in college basketball, it's not that way. If you have positive tests, your team is quarantined, your games are canceled or otherwise rescheduled, and you got to figure it out. And the NCAA is not playing games because they need to try and make it to the tournament. It makes like 80% of their annual revenue, the men's and women's college basketball tournament. So we're going to see a lot of games canceled, whether it's UofL's fault or whether it's UofL's opponent's fault. Louisville is not going to play however many 25 games or whatever's on the schedule this year, in my opinion.
I still think, we can talk about this a second, and I hate to disappoint our fan base, but if you watched any of the WNBA games that took place earlier this year, it was a controlled environment. There were virtually no fans in there. The plexiglass was up. People were wearing masks on the sidelines, on the benches, the reporters and all. I do think that it may end up going that way. And I know there's probably 2,500 people who've bid for their tickets over the last 2 days, where they're going to sit madder than a wet hornet at me right now. But I think ultimately that's the way it's got to be, Casey.
Yeah. Yes, I agree that there should not be fans in these indoor arenas for the safety of them, as well as the actual feasibility of playing a full college basketball season.
Yeah, and let's remember the WNBA was in a complete bubble for the whole season, and not just like within the arenas. That was like their whole life.
And they still had a couple of issues.
Right, they still had some scares in it with it. So, yeah.
How do you do that with college basketball, though, Jared? That's the question. Do you say, okay, we're going to put up this arena here in Nashville, there's going to be 8 teams in it, all from around that area, and they're going to play each other? I don't know if you can do the same thing that the WNBA did as far as putting everybody in that same bubble, but I think the fans could be a big element in this, Jared.
No, you're not going to be able to get college athletes in a bubble the same way you did with the NBA and WNBA. Those players, that's their career, their profession, they're getting paid for it. It's part of the contract at that point. You just restructure the contract and you say, hey, if you're playing and you're going to be part of our team and our program this year, this is how we're doing it. If you violate these rules, you're not playing. You can't do that with college. We're not paying them. They're still getting an education. They're having to go to classes a little bit here and there. They still interact with other people. If we were paying them a salary, then you may be able to do something. But still, with the whole NCAA, and we're not going to pay college athletes, obviously that's out of the question right now. So you're going to take what you can get, and at this point, I still don't think having the fans is the best option. I think you should be able to semi-limit them, but the exposure that the athletes are getting everywhere else is still going to be pretty high.
And one of the other things is these semi-bubbles that have tried to pop up. We've already seen, Louisville had to replace a team in theirs. The previous, what was basically the Maui Invitational move to South Dakota, has completely fallen apart. Teams either have COVID and can't go, or because South Dakota is a disaster, are choosing to not go. And that event is basically going to happen with 4 teams at this point. Maybe less than that. It's just not what people were anticipating at all. So even when teams and event organizers have tried to put together these semi-bubbles, it's not even clear that that's going to work. This season is going to be interesting, and I think, if anything, early Major League Baseball season, when they first came back, is a good indicator of what can happen. Just if you have a small outbreak, you just throw everything into turmoil. With all these teams, they're going to be trying to travel all over the place to play games in different places. It could get rowdy.
Just let me throw this by you. A former coach we know quite well, who is no longer with Louisville, but has his own program once again.
That's under quarantine.
Yeah, suggested that perhaps all of college basketball would be wise to step away from any type of competition until 2021 and end up ultimately with the NCAA finals right around Derby time. Jeff, is this a good idea? What do you think about what Mr. Patino said?
Yeah, you don't want to agree with Rick Pitino, but you do.
Right? I mean, I think it's reasonable to do a tournament bubble. I think it might be reasonable. Let me qualify that. It might be reasonable. Yeah. And I think they might pull it off okay, right? With appropriate controls leading up to it. And that's going to be the tricky part, right? So I kind of think that's actually not a terrible way to approach it. Bag the season as a regular season and just say, hey, let's have a big tournament. And let's call it maybe even expand their tournament size over the normal 64 teams into a larger, tournament size to give some other teams some chances to play. And because you don't have the regular season kind of guiding who should be getting into it, all the bubble question, right? And I think maybe that's a more practical way to do something like this. I have so many mixed opinions about Rick Pitino, but he may be onto something here.
Indeed. But we're going to kind of assume for the next few minutes here that we are going to play on the 25th. Our first opponent is Middle Tennessee State, down in Murfreesboro. So what do we know about this team? I did a little research on them earlier this week on Cardinal Couple. I'll review this with you quickly. They are the preseason Conference USA pick to win that conference down there. Secondly, they have a very, very smart and intelligent coach in Rick Insell, and now he's even got his son on the staff with him. So it's a family business there. Okay, a la Rick and Richard Pitino, except it's got a southern flavor to it. The Blue Raiders were 21-9 last year. They were actually on a 4-game winning streak going into the Conference USA tournament, but of course, like so many of those, theirs was canceled. They did not get a chance to play in their conference tournament. Last year, they took some lumps. Kentucky, Gonzaga, Arizona State, WKU, all kind of beat up on them, but they weren't really blown out in any of those games. They were just kind of soundly defeated. Okay. Who they got coming back? They got 2 out of 5 starters back, and it's a sister act, as they have Anastasia and, I know I'm going to mess this pronunciation up, Aislinn Hayes. The Hayes sisters, who are actually out of Murfreesboro as well, went to high school there, were the 2 leading scorers on the team's guys with 18.7 and 14.1 points per game. They are 5'7" guards, and they are pretty incredible to watch. I saw some film on them from last year. There's also another sister act on that team with Alexis and Amanda Whittington. They're kind of reserve guards, and I expect they'll be the same this year. Looks like MTSU has added some height, a couple of 6'3" freshmen, one from Ontario and one from Spain. And they've also got transfers in Deja Cage, who played at Ole Miss. She was a leading scorer down there, by the way, when she played down there in the 18-19 season. And also a redshirt transfers in from Elon for 10 points. Where is Elon located, fellas?
Nashville.
No. Jared, you're wrong.
Close.
Elon.
Is it,
Elon.
is it near Greensboro?
Yes, it is. Very good guess.
Okay.
They've also got a freshman center coming in, Saliva Kozlova, a highly sought after post from Moscow, Russia. So
Elon
they do have some height.
Elon has a pretty good a cappella vocal group out of there. They call it the name of Twisted Measure. Do some really good stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. They perform barefoot. It's interesting.
Huh.
Random tidbit there.
Okay. Just as long as they, don't have any clogging going on, I guess they're okay. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
So there is height on this team. There's certainly experienced guard duo that we've seen 21-9 last year. The conference thinks in the Conference USA that they will be the favorite to win it. So it's not a pushover for the Cards to start out. As we mentioned earlier, they got some votes in the USA Today poll, and the also, considered feature of that. They've got guard play, guys. We've got guard play. Is this maybe the type of game that Jeff Wallace wants to experiment with that 4-guard lineup? Give me some ideas on what you're thinking about this early matchup. And Jared, what do you think? We're playing in their gym, by the way, down there, and it's a little mouse box too. It's not a great gym.
Yeah, from what my memory serves, Middle Tennessee State's always been a tough team, whether it's UofL playing them or just in their own conference NCAA tournament. Not a team you can sit on. But based off what you described, especially with their roster, the height, the players who saw a lot of time last year, this sounds like a team that you mentioned we should be able to run a nice 4-guard lineup with. Or we may see that hint of that 5-guard set going here and there for a little bit. It's a good time to experiment with a fast-paced game. You don't always see the fast-paced games in the ACC. You'll get slowed down against some programs, maybe like Florida State, who have a little stronger, tougher defense. So this is a great time. It's early season. You still got the rest of the season to look forward to in case you do hit that speed bump you can recover from. So go on and test the waters early and see what your team can do and what they're capable of doing.
I'm going to write these down. Give me a score prediction, Jared.
Oh, man. Let's see. Early season. I think we may still, be trying to figure ourselves out a little bit. I think we'll be lucky to hit the low 80s mark. So I'll say the Cards get the win 80-72.
80-72, the man says. We'll review these next Saturday. Jared, when you take a look at this team, obviously the Hayes sisters and guards are strong. They've got some height on this team. How does Jeff Wallace overcome those two factors where he isn't maybe as tall as them, but he's certainly got the guard play?
Oh, you just got to get in their heads early and mess with them. play a little bit more of a, excuse me, a little scrappy defense. Go after them. Put a little pressure on early, see if you can force the turnovers. Because sometimes once a player is out of their groove, they never recover from it, and I think that's a good route to go this time.
Jeff, do you think Wallace does a massive type of substitution deal in the first game to kind of see what everybody can do out there? Maybe nobody gets more than 25 minutes kind of deal?
Yeah, I think there's a very good possibility of that. We've got so much talent so across this whole team that I think, particularly in these early games, particularly non-conference games, we see it on a pretty routine basis. You see a lot of substitutions from Jeff Walls as he's cycling players in and out and taking a few games to kind of figure out who is performing at this level when it comes to game time. We know he puts a lot of emphasis on practice play to inform and influence the starting lineups for each individual game, but you also see him developing a pattern and rotation, and many coaches do this. This isn't special to Jeff Walls over the course of a season, and so early games you see a lot of substitutions in and out, lots of mixed up patterns and groupings of players to see who's performing well together as well as just performing individually. So yeah, absolutely, I think you see a lot of substitutions early on, and you may see some bizarre lineups. You may see some 5-guard lineups. I think we could put a pretty good team out on the floor with nobody being above 6 feet tall, right? I mean, you look at the roster, you've got a lot of good names in there that can really do some really great things out there. So it may not be something that you can play against every team, like you talked about, but I think it's a potential that we could see some crazy lineups like that.
Yeah, it is a potential. It is so give me a score.
I'm kind of like Jared. I think we win this one a little more than he thinks, but I think our total is going to be in the same ballpark of what he's thinking. I was going to say about 84 to 56 or something around in there.
84-56. Okay, a good start then by your book. Case, we've heard a lot about Olivia Cochran being one of the best inside players that Jeff Walls has seen as a freshman, and he compared her with some pretty heady players like Maisha Hines-Allen, Asia Taylor. We're going to see that. We've got Liz Dixon, who's supposedly back and really looking good in there. If worse comes to worse, does he turn to the two Twin Towers here against MTSU?
It's going to be interesting. Middle Tennessee was a team last year. They could score really consistently. They had a game against Western Kentucky late in the season that went to double overtime. They ended up winning 108-103. They didn't score fewer than 15 points in any quarter or any overtime. So they can definitely score. And when they come out early, you have to be really careful with how much you want to experiment, both I guess early and late, but early in particular. That game that they played against Kentucky, it was the second game of the season last year. They were coming off of just a brutal barn burner against East Carolina, where they led in the season opener. It was against East Carolina last year. They led 18-14 after the first quarter, only scored 4 points in the second quarter to take a pretty big halftime deficit, but then scored 26 in the third to bounce back. Before holding on to win that game by just 2 points. And then they came out against Kentucky and led at the end of the first quarter. They were only down 4 at halftime before Kentucky went on just a huge third quarter. They won 31-18, which was ultimately the difference. But Middle Tennessee hung tough for a long time, and so I don't know that Louisville can afford to really experiment too much off the top. And I don't know that playing with two bigs is necessarily Louisville's best option this early in the season. You mentioned how great Olivia Cochran is supposed to be, but it's really tough to start a young big. Young guards, that skill can translate really quickly. Strength is not as much of a factor. You come in, if you're a speedy person or a shooter, you're still going to have those abilities. But on the inside, there's a lot that goes into that some older players who have more of the collegiate conditioning and strength training are really going to kind of bully people on the inside. So I don't doubt that Olivia Cochran is going to be great. I don't doubt that she's going to be pretty good this year, but I don't know how much you can depend on her if things aren't going your way early in this game against a scrappy MTSU team. I don't know how much you can depend on trying not only a different style of play, but with a young player. I think it may be best, even if things are a little dicey, to keep your 5 best players on the floor, regardless of what lineup that puts you in.
Good analysis. Throw a score at me.
I think Louisville still wins going away, but I don't know that it'll be without concern. I think they probably win in the 15 to 20 range, so I'm going to say 82 to 65.
82-65. Okay. As far as my analysis and what I think is going to happen in this game is that we have heard glowing reports on how the Cards can fill up the bucket. And when I take a look at shooters like Haley Van Lith, Dana Evans, Kiana Smith, Alana Smith, I think it's going to be let freedom ring, as the Cards will be bombing from outside and they will be hitting from outside. I don't think that MTSU will be ready for such, and I think that Louisville will start out hot. They've been practicing for so long, and they're so anxious to get out there and actually play somebody besides the practice guys and themselves, that the Cards will put on an incredible offensive display shooting the basketball. I'm going Louisville 102, MTSU 70. Okay.
Century mark in the season opener, he says.
Gorefest.
On the road.
When you make threes, boys, you get one more point than when you make 2. And we're going to make a bunch of threes. You heard it here, okay? All right, so we'll review these next week. And, of course, you can throw the bucket of water on me when I'm wrong. But anyway, we'll see what happens. I just expect that they're still itching to get out there. They're so excited. There's so much anticipation to just play. And I think they will play well. All right. A bit of swimming news, Case. We don't want to neglect that. I want to kind of review about a little bit about what you wrote today about the Louisville swimming program's got some good stuff going on.
Yeah, they're not technically on the calendar. Any potential meets that they may have this year, but I believe they're still scheduled to have NCAA swimming at some point going forward. Louisville is trying to get ready for that. They're trying to get ready for potentially a tournament-only format. They're hosting their own ACC tournament in-house in the Ralph Wright Natatorium this weekend, having preliminary heats and then final swims. Some new names that we'll have to get used to, with the likes of Molly Fears and Grace Oglesby and Sophie Cattermole graduating. Obviously, we lost Mallory Comerford before, Kelsey Worrell. The big names that Louisville has had in the past on this Louisville women's swimming side. I don't think that tradition is going to end. We've got some new names that we're going to be looking out for, one of which is a pretty familiar name, Gabby Albierro, who is Arthur Albierro's daughter, Nick Albierro's sister, Estefan Albierro's sister. As I learned, he also swam here, and that their mother is the head swimming coach over at Cal, where she comes from. So it's just a whole swimming family. But she won the 50 free yesterday. Was the top of the team. She was also a member of the winning 200 relay team and the winning 400 medley team. So we'll see. There's a couple of more individual events that I think she'll participate in this weekend, today in particular, that I think will be a good watermark for her. No pun intended. Christiana Regenauer, Kaylee Wheeler, Katie Shore, and Ashlyn Schoof were her teammates on those relay teams, and then Christiana Regenauer and Kaylee Wheeler were actually second and third in the 50 free, which she won. In the medium to long distance, I don't know if 500 is considered medium or long. 10 laps is more than I could swim in a pool. But Maria Sumida won both of those events, the 500 free and the 200 IM. So I think that she's going to be another name that we're going to be looking for moving forward. So like I said, that event goes on today and tomorrow as well. It's a 3-day event. as they try and get ready for some tournament meets, and we'll be looking forward to the next big name that could put another banner in Ralph Wright Natatorium.
And also last night at football, they announced that Maria was the Cardinal Athlete of the Week. How about that?
Cool.
So it's a cute little picture of her in her swimming outfit. So, Jared, are you going to get down there and snap any photos of this thing? Maybe put on the goggles and the trunks and tell them that you're in here to swim the freestyle for Boston College?
My swimming days, or at least in terms of being on a swim team, are long gone. I finished that up back when I was about 6 or 7. I can still stay afloat and move pretty well, but I couldn't keep up and compete with them. If they let me in there to take pictures this year, I'd gladly do it. But I think they're still figuring out what they need to do over there as well with this crazy pandemic going on. So maybe later this season we'll see.
And that is an award, kind of what it's all about right now, too. What will the pandemic allow us to and not do? Okay. With that said, let's go ahead and roll and do some final thoughts, as we've covered quite a bit today. I think we've done a good job looking at some stuff. Jeff, let's go ahead and start you out with final thoughts today.
Yeah, I said before the show started that I was ready for this one this week. I saw on Instagram this morning, former volleyball player and all-around wonderful person, Maggie DeYoung, was accepted to University of South Dakota Doctor of Occupational Therapy program. So shout out to one of my favorite volleyball players. I got the opportunity to meet and know Maggie a little bit while she was here, and she's a wonderful person. She'll make a wonderful doctor, and hey, thumbs up, congratulations. She's probably not listening, but shout out to her for being awesome.
And she'll be up there near somebody who she inspired to come to Louisville too, Jeff, in City Chetna.
Yeah. In addition to being an amazing person and former volleyball player, she apparently has become a fairly significant aspect of our recruiting pipeline, as we have several players out of South Dakota now that she's had a little bit of a hand in. So, yeah, it's great.
Absolutely. All right, Jared, what you got for me on final thoughts?
I don't really have much. Just enjoying this new phone that came in and trying to figure it out. So if you're an iPhone user and you know anything about the iPhone 11, some tips to make the transition pretty easy, give me a holler. I'll be happy to take those tips and advice.
There you go. And he won't even charge you an interest fee like he normally does. Okay, good work.
Only for Paul.
I'll pay gladly, buddy, because I need all the help I can get. Case, what's up with you?
Yeah, I just want to kind of come in the UofL athletic program at large. They had that outbreak in the football team that was unfortunate, and saw a game canceled and then some players missing. But since then, last week, like last Friday's report, they had gotten their positivity rate down back under 0.5%, or back at around 0.5% out of 1,623 tests. Then this week they did about 1,200 tests and went down even further to about 0.4%. So 5 total positive reports this week. So it is really tough. You're in a state that is up over 9% positivity rate on tests, a city that is around the same with their struggles in the Louisville metro area. And so for the Louisville athletic program to be doing a pretty good job, all things considered, commend them for whatever they're doing appears to be working pretty well.
Indeed it does. Final thoughts here. I'm going to go down Eastern Parkway a little bit, away from the UofL campus, and end up over at Bellarmine, where a good friend of mine and a coach that is finally getting a chance of hers to get into D1 and play some basketball. And then all of a sudden, boom, Chance Dugan gets hit with the concept that you're not even going to play until close to New Year's. So much anticipation about getting a chance to join the elite of college basketball divisions, and then having basically the rug pulled out from underneath you and saying, no, you can't, because of factors that are going on in this world. So my heart goes out to you, Chance, all the hardworking people over there. at Bellarmine. It's a shame we're not going to get to play you right off the bat, but as we've said so many times this year, wait until next year, wait until 2021. So keep them healthy as you can, Chance, and work with them, because I'm a Cardinal fan, but I'll be watching some Bellarmine basketball. This I guarantee. All right, fellas. We'll be back with you next week with a post-Thanksgiving episode of the Cardinal Couple Radio Hour podcast. And Jared, you bring the leftovers, okay?
I'll bring them to work with me next Saturday.
Very good. All right, everybody have a great Thanksgiving. We'll be thinking of you. Stay safe, wash your hands, and don't eat too much turkey because it'll put you to sleep. Okay, bye-bye.